Congratulations on getting your DTV. Now you're sitting in wait, relaxing in Thailand, and questions start to pop up. You start to wonder about a few things. That's what we're going to talk about today. 5 important FAQs about your Thailand DTV once you've actually received it and re-entered the country. And then we're also going to talk about things that are starting to happen that may be putting visas in crisis. All right, y'all, so let's get started. I'm Ali, your favorite eccentric SLO-mad. Welcome back to my channel. And we are going to be talking about all things travel. The world is turning upside down all around. You need to be in the know. And so I am going to fill the gap. We are continuing that DTV series. Number 1 video was talking about the application process. Number 2 video was talking about how to enter Thailand with that DTV. And now we're going to answer some of your questions around what to do in certain situations once you have your DTV. So let's get to it. Okay, number 1, do you need to pay any fees if you leave the country and return during your 5-year DTV window? There's no fees that you have to pay. There's no renewal that you need to pay. You have 5 years from the time that it's stamped to the expiration, which is on your DTV visa that you're going to carry around when you leave, exit, and enter the country anyway. As long as you're within that, you do not have to pay a renewal fee. Number 2, this is a big one, 90-day reporting. You guys have heard about this 90-day reporting thing. Every long-term visa has to do 90-day reporting. 90-day reporting basically lets the officials of Thailand know where you're staying and confirms that you are still within the country, you are residing, and you are using your long-term visa. So every 90 days, you basically go in, you report your current address. The first time that you do your 90-day reporting, I understand you do it in person. I haven't done mine yet, so I will report back. That will be in the series. And then after that, you should be able to do that online. But this is something that you must do if you choose to remain in the city, in the country. So I'm going to give you a caveat to that. Should you choose to leave before that 90 days hits, and that 90-day reporting, I believe it's 5 days before your 90 days and 14 days after where you have to do that reporting. So they give you a bit of a grace period. One of the things to note is if you choose to leave so you avoid immigration altogether, going into an immigration office and all of that, you basically can pop down to a neighboring country if you want, or if you need to travel anyway, you travel, you leave, and when you come back, you get re-stamped or another entry basically into your passport. Just have to keep in mind, for every time you leave, you get another stamp. So that's taking up space in your passport, okay? And that avoids you having to go to immigration, which isn't really a big deal because I've seen people do their 90-day reporting. So that's just something to keep in mind. Next question. If I am on my DTV and I choose to leave before my 180 days, because I get 6 months. Let's say I do the 90-day reporting, I'm good to go. And I don't want to do the full-fledged 180-day extension. I want to go ahead and pop out of the country and come back. How long do I have to stay outside the country? And right now, Thai embassy officials are saying that there is no time requirement. So basically, you could pop out and pop back in. You could potentially do a visa run to Malaysia. You could catch a train down to Malaysia. You can pop over to Cambodia. You can pop down to Singapore, jump over to Vietnam for a day or two, and come right back and get re-stamped for another 180 days. That's what's happening. That makes this DTV fantastic. All right. Okay, number 4. If you are doing the 180-day extension, if you choose to stay in the country, you don't want to leave, you got a year lease, you want to sit and chill, that was the point of you getting it, just know this, right? As of now, you will need to go into immigration and resubmit all of your documentation that you submitted to obtain your DTV, and including making sure that your financial statements are up to date upon that renewal. So let's say I got my DTV in July, I will need in December when I expire, or if I'm going to extend, I will need to show my bank statements up current to the date that I'm actually going and extending. So up to December, like the month before. So that is something to keep in mind. Otherwise, you just exit the country and you get restamped with your 180 days. That, I believe, is what most people are doing. But again, should you want to do the extension because you need to stay in the country, you couldn't leave before, whatever the case may be, keep this in mind, you guys. You don't have to wait until the 180th day to leave. You can leave before that and, get another 180-day re-entry stamp on that same DTV visa. It's multi-entry. It does not have a limit to how many days you can stay, how many times you can come and go per year. It doesn't have any of that. So just keep that in mind. But should you do the extension, you will have to show all your paperwork again. All right, number 5. This one I think is important. If you have a passport that is getting ready to expire in the next year or so, and you get your DTV on your passport before it expires, and you go in and you renew your passport, what do you do then? Do you have to get everything redone? Does it automatically transfer over to your new passport? And the answer is no, it does not transfer. Why? Because your passport number changes. Your passport number changes. So what are you going to do? You gotta make sure you get your old passport back if you are applying within the country that you're staying with, if you're within Thailand or anywhere else. Make sure you carry that old passport, because when you go to immigration, they're going to want to see the passport associated with your visa, and your visa has your old passport number. You reapply, you're going to, as my understanding, it's reapplying, you're starting all over paying again. I don't think you want to do that. Just make sure you carry both of your passports. If the old one expires, even though it doesn't have an actual DTV, like 5-year visa inside of it, it contains the passport number that coincides with the DTV visa that you have or had when you applied and got approved for your DTV. So that's really, really important to know. So make sure you present both passports when you enter the country and when you leave the country. And I want to do a bonus one. I want to talk about taxes. And I'm not going to go deep into this, but a lot of questions around taxes, because some may or may not know that 180 days is basically a tax cutoff. Most countries have that. If you stay in a country without leaving for 180 days or more, you then fall into that country's tax bracket. Usually Thailand has something similar. If you stay in Thailand for more than 180 days within a calendar year, even with the extension, you will be considered a Thai tax resident. This requires you to declare your global income and potentially pay taxes in Thailand. So it's going to depend on your personal situation, your income, things of that nature. And if you are from the United States, you are also going to pay taxes in the United States. So that's where that doubling comes up. That's something that you want to be aware of. I am not a tax specialist or anything like that, but I think that is one that is important to note. All right, you guys, so those are the 5+ bonus things you need to know about the DTV once you arrive, and how to maintain and manage that DTV so you don't have any problems down the road. There may be other questions that may come up. Please don't hesitate to ask me. But let's get into the second part of this, which is about expat visa crisis. What are some of the things that are starting to happen around the world that are impacting expats, specifically from the United States, from obtaining visas, current visas that you may have, applying for visas in different countries, things of that nature. There's a lot happening around the world that impacts your ability to your mobility, your ability to be mobile around the world. And one of the things that I want to share with you guys, and a lot of times we don't think about this, is the power of the passport. That blue book is really important. But as we're seeing, as we saw in COVID, that blue book started to lose some of its grandeur, some of its prestige. And we are seeing that again here in 2025. So I want to point out a few things. If you guys have taken my travel course or anything like that, you know that one of the websites that I talk about all the time is passportindex.org. You guys go check out passportindex.org. You may look and say, who cares about ratings and rankings and all that stuff? It's important to note because it basically lists the power of your passport. And the United States has dropped down to tier number 10, but we are not the 10th country, but we fall to around number 40, 41 in the number of countries out of 193. So we are technically ranked country number 41. And I'm just going to tell you really quick who pops up ahead of us. Number one passport in the world is UAE. They have 132 countries that they can enter visa free. This is where why the ranking is important. They have 47 countries that they can enter visa on arrival, and 19 countries where a visa is required, application of a visa prior to arriving in the country. Spain is next, which is really wild. And then Singapore falls after that. And then in that same power ranking, France, Germany, Belgium. You guys, you might be surprised at some of these that are above the United States. So we've got a lot of EU countries, which is not necessarily surprising. But there are a couple of others. South Korea is in that fourth ranking group as well. Estonia is up there. Slovakia is ahead of us. Liechtenstein, Latvia, Slovenia, all have a higher ranking passport. Malta, Lithuania, Romania, Bulgaria, some of these very small countries even are higher. So Cyprus is above the United States, tied with the United Kingdom. Malaysia is up there as well, along with our neighbor in Canada. So just keep that in mind. So the United States, we are allowed to enter 120 countries visa free. We need for 49 countries, we are required to, or we are allowed visa on arrival. And then there's 29 countries that we must apply for a visa before we even fly. So you may be asking, what's the big deal? Why is it important to know this? We still get into 120 countries, with no problem. Probably the countries that we want to go to, there's no big deal. So with a number of the things that are happening in the world, we need to know how those things impact us. While, yeah, we can enter 120 countries visa exempt right now, that is changing. That is changing by the week, okay? Embassies, U.S. embassies are closing. That impacts visas. That impacts our ability to enter countries and things like that. We have to start thinking about that cause and effect, right? So if we start barring countries or limiting their citizens to enter the U.S., making their visa process more difficult, we might start to see, and we're starting to see, kind of a trickle-down effect. For example, Namibia, we used to have a visa exempt 90 days. I almost went, and I should have gone. And literally a week after I left Africa, or during that week, Namibia executed a visa requirement on the United States, where it's no longer visa exempt for us, or at least be ready to, possibly change your plans, or apply for visas and or pay for money. Namibia actually charges a fee for the visa. So the things that, let's say you got a family of four or something going, and you weren't anticipating an extra $70 to $100 per person, these are things that you're going to now have to think about, especially if you've pre-planned out your vacation. So not just the cost. Travel bans in other countries start to have the reverse effect on U.S. global travelers. So what's the impact of them closing embassies? You may be asking. Okay, they closed the embassy, but I'm visa exempt, or I applied and I have my visa. I'm not going to go to the embassy in the country. I never go to an embassy in a country. Well, this is when you have to take into account things like security risks. This is what our embassy helps manage, STEM, and verifying where you are should there be some disaster or some crisis that happens in a country, health checks, things like that would inform you if there was something happening in a country. These are the things that our embassy managed for us. And then the ability, if there is a physical embassy within a country, to take refuge there should something happen, and then potentially have an expedited exit. So things like that are impacted. Slower visa processing is impacted. Passports impacted. Say you lose your passport, or it drops in the rain, it's all messed up, or you take it on a excursion with you and it's destroyed, and you need a passport, and you don't even think about it, but you happen to be in a country, Asia or Africa are being hit, or we're starting to see embassies closing and things of that nature. Something like that can happen unexpectedly. Now, how do you get a expedited passport, right? So things like that we're not thinking about, even as, we're going on about our regular day, and I'm a full-time traveler. And so these are some of the things that I've had to kind of sit with and say, okay, things that I didn't necessarily think about before, because the comfort of knowing that they existed and they were there kind of put like this shield, this blanket over me, like, oh, I'm good. But these are even things that I am taking into account and making sure that I'm aware of, should there be some sort of impact to me. When you see a number of countries with, protesting what's happening in the U.S., you'll start to see more travel bans, not just the U.S., extending or expressing what those travel bans are for people wanting to enter the United States, but also externally, people receiving US citizens. What if you've already gotten a trip paid for and you're planning on going on the safari somewhere and they shut the doors and say, well, you can't come and you don't get a refund? I mean, and not that it's always just about the financial part of it, but it's also, you know, things can happen right in the middle of a trip. For example, I know someone that I'm hosting for, I'm cat sitting right now, and they were heading out. Everything was fine. They didn't get a notification until they got to the airport, and they're flying to Europe, that any flights flying through or around the Qatar airspace were shut down. So in that moment, it was okay, now what? And so those things start to have a trickle effect, you know? And so just being aware of how these things can start to impact you, how, you know, people who say, well, you know, I don't have my passport, I'm not applying for a visa, I'm just going on a cruise. One of the cuts is to inspection personnel for cruise ships. That could definitely impact your cruises and the likelihood of, you know, making sure that everything has been inspected and you are in a safe space when you go on these cruises, because you have an expectation that if it's a cruise that originates in the States or something like that, or is a US company, you're going to be good to go. You can't take those assumptions going forward. You're going to need to do a little bit of homework and make sure that you have an out should something happen, and or you understand what you're walking into. So these are some of the things that I think are important that you guys keep track of this stuff. We're sharing it as it comes, and it is coming like the speed of light. And I hope that this is informative to you guys and you get something out of it. Please comment if you've experienced anything like this so far in the last, you know, couple of months, as we see things really ramping up and changing in the United States, how that is impacting your travel, your plans, your livelihood, your mobility and things like that. And I'll continue to share what I learned and how it's impacting me, and continue to share more about DTV if you're interested, as well as all things travel. So anyway, you guys, I'm going to get out of here. I hope this is helpful. I hope to see you guys back here again soon. You guys know the drill. Doodles and noodles, peace and hair grease.